Well, thanks everybody for coming to our event. Our DDX Hackathon is what we're kind of calling it. We'll get into that. So my name is Gwen Fuertes. I'm with Letty Meadham Stacy Architects, and kind of my partner in this presentation is Seth Dunn with Siegel and Strain Architects. You can wave, Seth. And we are having an event. This is kind of the second part of a two-part event hosted by AIA East Bay about the 2030 commitment this spring. We hosted a kind of a similar remote DDX hackathon last year in the summer. Some of you might have been there. I thought it was a really great event, very supportive kind of way of getting everybody ready to do the reporting during the pandemic. It was kind of a crazy time. Some things have changed since then. We have a new DDX tool now, a reporting tool with some different features and kind of a different workflow. So we wanted to kind of like all together, get in the same room, go through this, walk through it together, use this time kind of as like maybe a supportive work session. So if you are a little bit behind on gathering your metrics, et cetera, this might be a good time to just put your head down and start the process. So we have 2 hours allocated right now. Obviously, that's a big chunk of time. We're going to kind of divide it up a little bit into a little bit of a presentation, a walkthrough. I'll do like a demonstration of putting a new project into the new DDX system, and then we're going to very quickly after that break out into smaller breakout rooms so that we can kind of have maybe smaller groups of people asking questions, answering questions, doing the work. And I think maybe some questions might come out of the presentation and the introduction. So don't be shy, put stuff into the chat if you have any questions. I might not get to it right away, but we'll definitely be filtering them all, collecting them into a bucket, and then deciding kind of how to address the questions, if they're better addressed live in the whole group, or if it's like better kind of addressed in smaller groups by topic. And we have some other friends on the line that are going to be helping host those breakout rooms. So people with excellent experience with the 2030 commitment. But I will say we are all collectively pretty new to this new DDX tool. So I might not have all the answers for any kind of glitches or troubleshooting with the tool, but that's what we're all here for together. We're gonna all help each other, right? So with that, I think we can get into you know, how are we going to use this time? What is a hackathon? Like that's kind of a techie term a little bit, but I wanted to break this down a little bit for what the context of this hackathon is for our group, for the AIA East Bay, and this process with the 2030 commitment, right? So one way to think about it is like it's a dedicated time and space to get your reporting done, right? We all have to do this at some point. Now we have 2 hours of our night that we've set aside already. We can do it. It might also be a space for sharing your progress if you've already started the reporting process, asking questions, getting or giving feedback to others. A mutual support event, you know, just like if you are not really good at doing stuff live during a webinar, maybe you can help support other people and get encouraged and inspired to do it. Yeah, get inspired, make your plan. How are you going to get your data if you don't have it already? We can all explore this together. Like, how does the new tool work? Are there any shortcuts that you've learned in your process by collecting data from your firm or putting it into the tool that you can share with others? And this is a really great time to kind of share that out. And then also, this is broadly speaking, I think a space to connect with other peers at other firms who are all doing the same thing. We're all trying to reach for like very low carbon designs in our work. So we all have that in common. If we're in a big or a small firm, I think that's something that we can all share. So are you ready for the hackathon? There's kind of 3 questions that we wanted to pose just to make sure that you're in the right room, that this is the webinar for you. So do you understand the basics of the 2030 commitment? Yes, I hope so. If not, you can go to, we had the previous webinar was recorded and it's hosted on the AIA East Bay website. And that is a really great introduction to what the 2030 commitment is, what it takes to sign on, all the different steps. This webinar is really much more detailed and about kind of what the last step in this process is, the reporting process into the Design Data Exchange, DDX. Second thing, ideally for this event, you have already collected kind of all the information and materials you need to start the reporting. Now, that might have been very optimistic, and maybe you can use this time to start to get organized or start to ask other people, how did you get organized? How do you get this data from other teams at your firm? So this isn't necessarily, I'm not going to kick you out if you don't have all your materials, but it's helpful if you have them because we can actually start to do it together right now. And then finally, are you ready to share? Are you ready to provide insights on your experience either with the DDX tool or with the 2030 commitment program in general? Are you ready to kind of get in here and listen to others? So for your introverts in the room, which I am one, this is your chance to kind of lean in and start to be ready to share. For the extroverts, this is a really good chance to try to listen and see what you can learn from other people. So again, this is a webinar that should be the very last step of the process. You've already done the hard parts. You've already talked to your clients about sustainability. You've already studied energy efficiency option. You've already thought about embodied carbon. You've done multiple design iterations. You've gotten your team organized. You've talked with your firm about connecting culture to high performing design. You've made the case for low carbon. You're trying new energy modeling tools and processes. You've thought about on-site renewable energy. You're getting your consultants on board. You're setting targets. Okay, you've done all of this already. You've done all the hard parts. So what is this? This is just the last push, right? This event is here. Get ready for us to collect that documentation if you don't have it already, import it into the DDX tool, and then most importantly, the best part, is collecting that information back out and celebrating that with your firm, and maybe celebrating that with other peers in this room. So I hope you're excited. As a reminder, the reporting deadline has been extended to April 30th this year. And that's for reporting all of the projects in your portfolio that were in design during the 2020 calendar year. So if you started a new project, in 2021, you're not required or expected to report that project. This is really looking at the 2020 calendar year of design. And then, yeah, just like another reminder is that you do need to report your whole portfolio. So this isn't just like reporting the projects that have energy models. This is reporting every project that's in design, even if it doesn't have an energy model associated with that. We have a handful of projects that are like that, right? So you can still use the tool to establish energy targets. And if you don't have an energy model right away, you can use the code equivalent, like basically like whatever minimum code if energy efficiency equivalent would be for that performance, okay? And so I did want to share a little bit about Bloody Medium Stacy, my firm. We've done some of this collection already. We're ready to hit submit on our report, and I did want to kind of share out how we're sharing that back with the firm, because I think there's some really great satisfying conclusions that we can make from this effort. So this is a chart showing kind of our firm's progress with the commitment from 2010 through 2019. I haven't updated this chart yet for 2020, but you can kind of see we're tracking each individual project in our portfolio has a dot on this chart. And the 2030 target, right, percent reduction used to be 60%, 70%, now it's 80%. We're tracking our progress above and below that line, and we're sorting based on the different portfolios in our suite of projects. So we have a housing portfolio, a community portfolio, and an education portfolio. So kind of seeing what trends and patterns exist by market sector. And this year, we did take a look at how we're doing for the 2030 commitment. This is kind of a different way of displaying the data. The same idea, 0%, 100% reduction. So net zero energy would be here, 80% reduction, which is the 2020 goal, is this line. And also looking at per market sector. So our community projects, education, and housing. And you can see a handful of projects are actually meeting and exceeding that goal, which is really hard. So yay. We have some work to do in some of the other sectors, and we can get into some of those ideas of where we have space to grow. But I think this is a really helpful tool to start to understand, like, where we have space to grow. Another way we're kind of slicing the data, which is really relevant for East Bay firms, for California firms, is like how are we doing with our energy modeling and that process? So we've been tracking what projects have been relying on just compliance models, Title 24, versus a performance model, like an ASHRAE model or something that you would use to demonstrate performance beyond just like Title 24. And we've been tracking this for a while, but I just wanted to pull out 2020 and 2021 and say, like, yeah, the dark green, this is a good one. We want this to grow. We want this to take over the whole chart eventually. And we made a lot of progress last year in making the case for not just relying on Title 24 to give us feedback for our energy model. So even if we're not getting to the 2030 commitment goals, like 80% reduction, what other goals can we reach for? Can we reach for more high quality energy modeling? Yes. So this is something that you too can start tracking. And this is a great program to do that. Another thing we've been tracking is our all electric design progress. So 2020 versus 2021, looking at our all electric square footage in our portfolio versus our mixed fuel square footage in our portfolio, that also went up quite a bit. There were a few projects that actually kind of like helped us bump this far up. So I'm like wondering when those projects go to sleep if this line will shrink back, but we don't want to do that. We want to hold this line and potentially like keep growing it in this direction to make our portfolio, you know, focusing that on all electric, even if again we can't get to that 80% reduction goal, can we get to 100% all electric projects in our portfolio? Is that something we can do? So just a little sneak peek on, you know, how we like to think about using this program as a tool to gauge performance year to year. I'm seeing some chats, so I just want to check what we're doing. So camera's on, that's great. I see a question we can come back to later about new construction or major renovations. That's a good question, Jeff. David had a note about when reporting 2020 projects, be sure to set the project start date as its actual start date, not today or any day in 2021. I'll show a little walkthrough of the tool and maybe we'll David, pipe up when we get to that part because I always forget where that shows up. Loni, I think we can send you the link to the first workshop if you'd like to catch up on that. Maybe Mike or Seth, if we can post that link if you haven't already in the chat. We can see my screen, that's great. And Seth already responded to Jeff. Great, okay. I think I'm caught up on the chat. So the next slide is actually a slide from the last event. So this was a slide that was shown on March 3rd. So this is a recap. And like, basically we were trying to get everybody ready to do the reporting. So I think Seth went over, you know, here's what you need to collect, your basic information, Title 24 or energy modeling results for those projects, and any kind of on-site renewable data or just energy renewables data that you can find. So this is something that you might have had to nag other project managers about before this meeting. Maybe this is something you're going to still chase down after this call, but just kind of have this in your back pocket as like the bare minimum of what you should be collecting. There's definitely other metrics that you might want to also collect, but this is kind of what again, the bare minimum for what you need to do to just like get a project rolling in the DDX. All right, so quick agenda. I'm gonna flip over to my browser and we're gonna show you the new DDX tool. Then we're gonna roll into the breakout groups for some work sessions or Q&A. And then towards the end of this period, we'll regroup and see what we've learned and what we can share together. Along the way, I should say, we're gonna tailor these breakout group topics to your questions. So if like a lot of you guys are curious about, you know, weird project types, how do you categorize this in the DDX? Like maybe we make a group for that because we were seeing that kind of come up. So as we're going through this DDX overview, kind of think to yourself what questions you might have for other people in this call. Or maybe you have some things to share that you might want to create a breakout room and people might be interested in joining that. So anyway, this is not prescribed at all. We wanted to keep this wide open for like what you guys want to talk about. So we'll get some feedback on that later. But for now, I I will go to my browser and we will walk through the new tool. So here we go. Can people see this DDX screen now? Okay. So this is a make-believe project. So when you log into the DDX, you might have to reset your password for the first time you actually log into this new platform. You might have to like do some work to get your password fixed. So if you're coming up with errors or something, you might just need to reset your password and then it should be fine. But you might, once you do that, you can come up onto kind of this page which has these tabs: portfolio, company, and reports. So right now, this is my teaching account. This is not my work account because that other account just has like some confidential projects that I didn't want to have to like manually hide from you guys. This is like a make-believe company called Acme View Architects. But right now I have one project that's in my personal portfolio that's connected to my company. If I go to my company, I can now see the whole firm information, how long we've been a signatory, and all of the projects that the whole firm has been involved with. So one thing that might come up is like you might come up to your portfolio and say like, whoa, I'm missing a lot of projects here. Like I've definitely reported more than that, but depending on your role in the firm, right? But if you just click on company, as long as you've been kind of connected with that firm, you can then click over to that tab and see all of the different projects in the portfolio. So I thought we could just kind of go through and create a project together. You guys ready? It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Okay. Create a project. I should have made that clearer. So this green button right here, below the company information, we have manage projects. I'm going to click here, create project. New project, started it in 2020. It's not an old project. This is like new from 2020. And so I'm going to call it the AIA East Bay headquarters. And this is where we fill in the basic information. So the project status, this is a tab you can use if like a project got started but is on hold. Right now I'm going to use active. You can use your own project's firm ID number here. So I'm just going to call it 2016 or 2016 AIA East Bay. Project type. So you have three choices here, either interior only, residential, or non-residential. So this is going to be a non-residential headquarters. We're going to call this, it's either a new construction or major renovation. We're going to do a gut rehab for this one. Here, if you have a firm with multiple offices, you might have some different choices of like which firm, which office worked on this project. So I'm going to say the San Francisco branch of Acme View Architects worked on this project. This was a project in United States, in Oakland. You can see the zip code pre-populated this climate zone, which is a handy feature. California. Oh, and this is like the ASHRAE climate zone, to be clear. I'm going to use IP units. Okay, so I've had basic information is saved and continued. So this is like already a little different from the last one. If you're familiar with the last tool, all of this kind of was like on one page that you would scroll through. So this involves like a little bit more clicking, but I think a good kind of hierarchy of like what information to put in where. So the second step for project information is as shown. So we have estimated occupancy year. Let's say we're going to move in 2022. We're going to use an energy code. This is like an FAQ that has been received by AIA National, is when are we going to get California Title 24 2019? It's not in the tool yet. And when it will, I think I will be blasting it out to everybody I know because that'll be really exciting. But for now, I'm going to use 2016 because that's the closest version to 2019 that we have right now. And these are all optional fields. So I don't know them right now, so I'm just going to skip them. It's okay. I just want to get my reporting done. I'll come back and fill these in later. And then this is actually a really important part. So configure your use types. So right now it looks like there's a blank table. You can start to add information by clicking this plus sign. And this is where you start to say what type of building this is. So select a use type. This is the AIA East Bay headquarters is, we're going to call it a small office. Right, Mike, maybe? Or we can maybe it's a medium-sized office. Well, let's go with small. Okay, so let's,
small.
okay. How about like 8,000 square feet? Pretty generous. So once I put in this office and this area, you'll see that these cells automatically populate, and so does this down here. So this baseline was generated from these two metrics, these two values. If this looks right to you, then you can like leave it. If you actually want to fine tune this, you can do one of two things. You can go to the Zero Tool website, and we'll include that link in the chat, and get a little bit more specific information into the baseline calculator to get you like number of computers. There might be other questions about kind of like the space type of the office space. And then you can like override that down here using a custom baseline. But for now, that looks good to me. I'm just going to go with that. And then this is the 2030 target. So this is the baseline EUI. 80% reduction is around 10 EUI. Okay, so that's, now I know kind of like what I had to do to get to the 2030 challenge. Well, let's say that there's like other parts of this office, other use types for fun. I'm going to add, let's like have like maybe in the AIA East Bay headquarters, there's like a space for you to do some like religious worship of architecture. Maybe it's just a small kind of niche in the space, not big, you know, maybe it's like 500 square feet, but we'll add that because it's different than the office, right? So this baseline has a much lower EUI and thus a lower 2030 target, but you can see down here that there's already a weighted energy baseline target that's been already kind of calculated here. We'll just add one more for fun because it's very common. Let's pretend that there's also a parking program that's assigned to the AI East Bay headquarters. We're going to make this electric car parking only or bike parking, like a massive bike parking space. So we'll add that. Let's call it like 1,000 square feet. And you can see there's, for that line item, its own baseline, its own target, but here down here, it's like weighted average is presented here. And I can, again, use a custom one here, but for now, I feel really good about that baseline and moving forward with that. So once you've already done all your use types here, let's hit save and continue.
When is that parking structure or is that exterior parking?
That is interior park. Yeah, it's like covered in interior parking. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah. All right, so now we have a chance to set an energy performance target. So this is not yet your energy model. This is really like before we have an energy model, maybe you've talked with your client, maybe they have told you that they actually want to do a net zero project. So maybe this target for 80% reduction is not low enough. Maybe we want to actually make our target a 0 EUI. Okay, so Mike, are you good with that?
That'd be
All right.
great.
All right, so we're going with it. So now we're tracking with this tool what the target would be for the 2030 commitment, but we're also tracking our own target with a client that is beyond just the 2030 target. And down here, there's some really helpful ways of kind of filtering based on the different program types that we've inserted in the tool, like what other project types are achieving in terms of PEUI savings. So it's like another reminder of like where you can go. You can see on this chart that like there's a lot of projects in this, 15 to 40 range for offices. But actually a lot of offices are hitting net zero savings, right? And same with parking and religious worship, right? This is like a box and whiskers plot where you can see the median, the quartiles, and the overall ranges, and you can see kind of like what, the company. This is kind of beyond this tutorial, but you can set as a company what your target UI reduction might be. Might not be 80%. You might be trying to get everybody on board with a lower target. You can track like what the code equivalent value is for that. That's when I put in Title 24, 2016. That's what this line equivalency is. Okay, so it's just like helpful contextualizing for what these targets mean and what the baseline is. So let's save it. So now it looks like we finished, but we didn't quite finish because this is the project page. So we're now inside our company, inside the project within the company. We have some basic information here, but you can kind of see right now, there's some missing data, right? Because we haven't input any design data like our energy modeling data. So let's start doing that. Let's like track design data. You can see what we've put in already, basic project information, use types, our PEUI target, right, net zero. And now we can actually start to say like, here's every energy model that comes in, just start to log it under this project. So let's add some design data, get into it. So let's say that we are in SD, and this might be, David, what you were talking about, right? Yeah, so this is where you can say like, okay, my reporting date is, I got this energy model back in November 11th of 2020, right? Because that will map this to the 2020 reporting year. So just like whenever that energy model date was kind of logged within schematic design in 2020, just make sure you're kind of matching that here. Okay, so then we can scroll down here. Predicted energy use. So this is where it's like, have you done an energy model? And this is a little text about like why energy modeling is important and what happens if you don't have energy modeling. So if I didn't have an energy model right now, I would just kind of stop and it would basically assume that it's a like minimum performance, right? But let's say I do have an energy model. So I click yes, I toggle yes, and then this additional information comes down. So it asks you what energy modeling tool you have. What do we like? What's happened these days? I think this is a typical one that I tend to use a lot. Energy modeling party that you get to choose kind of, did the architecture team do it, design engineer, modeling consultant. I'm going to be optimistic and say we've learned how to use Energy Pro. And this is an optional field, energy modeling costs. This is something that some firms like to track for like how much time did it take to produce the energy model versus how much cost are you saving your client, et cetera. So this is a helpful metric, but optional one. I'll leave it blank right now. Okay, and this is where things start to get new this year. So a question about putting in your EUI. It used to just be like you would do a sidebar calculation on your own, gather your energy fuel data, do the conversion offline. You might need your own spreadsheet for it. You might need to use a little calculator. And then you would then put that end number in here. And let's say it was like 11, right? But now you don't have to have that separate spreadsheet necessarily. You can actually say, and there's also benefits to reporting the actual fuel source directly into this tool, right? So let's say we got our energy model and we have our predicted electricity use and we have our predicted like on-site renewable energy use, right? And those are different numbers. We'd have to probably do that conversion offline, but now we can actually do it directly in the tool. So we press yes, and we can add here fuel sources, energy provided, meaning kind of your annual energy, and then the units will populate here. So let's say we have an option of grid electricity, gas, district, other fossil fuels, on-site renewables, off-site renewables. So we're going to say our energy model came back. It's an all-electric project. We are not including gas. So the grid electricity came back and was like 14. Does that seem right? Let's just do. I'm making this up right now. Let's do, okay, 44,000 kilowatt hours. Right now, kilowatt hours are the unit that is pre-populated here. So I can put in 44,000 from the energy model and it'll do the conversion to kBTU directly in a tool, which is like, seems like a little thing, but it's a really big thing. Okay, let's also add our on-site renewable energy. We got a little PV array on the top of this headquarters. And let's say we only have roof space for like 30,000 kilowatt hours at the moment, but we're going to work through this. This is only schematic design, so we still have time to kind of dial in our efficiency. But anyway, right now we can put in our predicted kilowatt hours for on-site, and it will subtract and create this net EUI value over here. It's great. So now all we can, basically our work is done for our fuel sources. We can also kind of keep scrolling because it saw that we put in on-site renewables. It wants to know a little bit more about what type of on-site renewables we have. So it automatically toggled to a yes down here. I didn't press that, but it wants to know, is it photovoltaic, solar thermal, integrated wind turbine? So I'm going to click on photovoltaic. And this is a field if you have offsite renewables. And this is a new feature this year. Kind of what type of offsite renewables are we talking about? So the zero code, which you might be aware of, this is starting to become maybe a viable code path for the state of California. We're working on it thanks to efforts at AIA California, right? But so the zero code incorporates offsite renewables as a method to getting towards zero carbon. And the program, the 2030 program, has always been thinking about zero carbon, right? So thinking now about offsite renewables, what type those are. And there are different types to select from this drop-down menu. Do they provide additionality? Are they on the same energy grid? What is the purchasing time, et cetera? I'm going to leave this blank for now, but this is definitely something you want to get details of that if you do want to pursue offsite renewables and counting that towards your performance. Some additional optional fields I'd like to kind of keep moving, but you can definitely put in some lighting power density. Oh, we should talk about embodied carbon. So let's say that we actually incorporated some embodied carbon studies in our design during schematic design. And so this is a new awesome feature that was introduced this year. Again, very optional for the program, and it's not tied to the program goals like 80% reduction or anything right now, but this is a really good way of, while you're doing this reporting, asking teams like, what is your embodied carbon? What studies have you done on either, this, we do it a lot for just looking at structure, maybe not always getting to the detail of like LCA for interiors, but so you can say like, I only did it for the foundation in our structure, and you can basically roll in your embodied carbon values from the tool. This is a typical metric. It's not IP units, but it's SI units, and that's what everybody uses right now in the modeling tools these days. So don't be thrown off there. If you use Tally, that's what's going to come out of the tool. And so there's definitely a lot we could get. This is like another webinar, but this is a very exciting feature, and I encourage you, to take advantage of it because it's all collecting all the information in one spot. And eventually we'll be able to roll that into a story about operational carbon, embodied carbon, and how those two are working together. All right, so for now, I'm going to keep saving and going back to the project dashboard. All right, so now I have my project. It has a target. It also has some energy modeling data in it. And once you go back to your company, and you can filter by, okay, so some funny things about filtering is that you might need to actually, let's see, 2020, these drop downs, it's in here somewhere. There's just a lot of test projects. Did I fly through it? Oh man. East Bay. Okay, that's another way of doing it. Oh, portfolio years, maybe because we haven't actually reported it yet. Is that probably what happened? This is funny. This isn't something, oh, because it went to reporting date. No. Sorry, everybody. I'm still learning this tool too. Sorry, let me go back to East Bay headquarters. It's active, and let's all, if you guys can see anything that I didn't see. So date reported is November 11th. It should be in the company. And of course, during the demo is the time that this is getting exciting. I'm going to ponder that, maybe in a breakout room. it's definitely in here. And I'm going to definitely figure this out by the end of this session. So it should have shown up under 2020. But because I'm not, maybe it's because I'm like, this is a fake project. Anyway, let's actually practice this in the breakout rooms and see what you guys are seeing, because I'm kind of curious how this happened.
I was having a similar thing earlier today when I was trying to walk some colleagues through this, and it was exactly the same. It comes up not applicable when you set some data to 2020.
Okay. Thanks, Gavin. At least I don't feel that crazy. Let's see. Yeah. Let's come back to this. I'm going to try to chase this down offline. All right. So I think with that, very confusing ending of that demo, but the important thing is getting the information in there, and then we'll take you to the finish line. So for now, I think the next thing we wanted to do is kind of get everybody active and talking and maybe troubleshooting the problem that I just came up with as in breakout groups. And so what I'd like to do right now is like just take kind of 20 seconds and everybody kind of think to yourselves, like, what are your questions that you might have, or what issues are you kind of struggling with right now? And if you don't mind, like putting that into the chat as a potential topic for a breakout group, if we can kind of get you in the same room with other people kind of with the same questions, we can kind of design the breakout groups that way. Does that make sense? Like maybe we just kind of have like a little bit of quiet time, think about your process, where you're at, and then you can kind of pipe up in the chat about topics or questions that you have and see where we can match you. So yeah, feel free to just get into the chat with your questions. I'm seeing a few questions right now.
And for those of you that are unfamiliar with breakout rooms, we've set these breakout rooms so that you can jump between them. So when we name them, you should be able to happily jump into the ones that you're most interested in. And if that's not working out for you, you can switch rooms. And if you have a problem, there's always a little button that says help, and that will alert me you've got a problem, and I can move you manually to rooms, because not every computer and not every browser shows exactly the same buttons in Zoom. Just an FYI when we get to breakout rooms.
Hey, Gavin had a good question that I think we may be able to address without a breakout room. On renovation and new construction. And I just, personally, anytime there's just any bit of an addition, even if it's a small one in comparison to the renovation, I always count it as new construction.
You count the entire project as new construction, or do you break it into a new construction project and a renovation project? So
entire project, new construction. Okay. Just because it has an element of new construction to it. Yeah, it's a little bit confusing, but that's how we track it at our firm. I don't know if you guys do it differently.
I'm gonna start and slide with some themes: firm participation, data entry.
Does that actually bring you some kind of statistical advantage, or just does it appear better as on the stats for you to label everything as construction? I mean, new construction.
So really, it's about your scope, right? And renovation projects typically don't have as big a scope as new construction. So we can sort of sort them and post-process them and really understand our performance numbers a lot better when we're able to bin them in that way. That's just kind of an internal baseball. It can go either way.
Okay, I'm seeing some funny project questions. I'm gonna call them funny projects, weird projects, funny. That's more fun. So that might be, there might be more to tease out here in this topic. Firm participation times 2. There's another one. And then who was the other person? Jeff.
I'm seeing there was a question about projects that don't have energy modeling, and for a lot of smaller firms doing smaller projects that don't have budgets that support energy modeling. One of the things that we have the benefit of here in California is that at some point prior to submitting for building permit, you're going to do Title 24 energy modeling. And that is a form of energy modeling, which you can then translate into EUI for reporting into the DDX. So Gwen or Seth, I'm sure you've experienced that. Do we just estimate until we get to that point, or skip over? What's a way of hacking that?
So yeah, with the Title 24 report, and it has to be a performance Title 24 report. With the, if you're doing a prescriptive one, I don't think it's actually enough of an energy model to get you that data, but we can go over that. You'll just have to get the right metrics from your energy modeler, and that's totally an energy model that you can use.
And if you're reporting a project prior to doing the Title 24, you just keep working with a zero tool estimate or target?
Yeah, if you don't have an energy model yet performed on your project, then you will set a goal, which is zero tool. And even a project that does not ever have an energy model performed, such as a prescriptive small project, you might just get the EUI equivalent, which is what, if you're meeting California code, what is the equivalent energy reduction from baseline? So you can still track that data and just assume a code equivalent project, which I think this year is 53% below the baseline.
Sorry, I'm multitasking. If you asked me a question, the code equivalent, yeah, it's for 2016 code is 53%. Maybe it'll go up once we get a 2019 code equivalent. Really good questions, everybody. All right, Tia. Offsite renewables. I actually wanted to check back with 3 people had things that were kind of similar. I just want to make sure that this was, you all agree. So that you might be in the same group, because there's different ways of gathering data. So I just wanted to double check. I think Alexa was curious about data acquisition, setting up projects so that there is data to enter, like sustainability action plan. I think Jean also was trying to start to gathering data across all of your projects, who's, you know, wanting to talk to other people that are starting to do that. And then maybe it was Madison collecting appropriate data from all projects. So the 3 of you, are you kind of talking about internally, like at your firm, like a mechanism to start collecting the data, or are you really thinking about what it, like asking the right questions from consultants or getting it into the tool? It sounds like to me you're actually thinking about the internal mechanism. Can you guys weigh in if that was like basically right?
That's accurate for me. I'm Madison. That's accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate, although where we're at as a firm, I think all of those things are kind of the same issue for us.
Okay. And are you already signed on with the program, the 3 of you, onto 2030, or are you brand new?
We're
Yes,
signed on.
Okay. Okay.
We're brand new. I'm basically using everything that you all have put together to basically onboard everyone at the firm. But I got my cart before my horse, and I got permission to institute energy modeling first. So we're getting data, but now I just need to get people to agree to apply it to the DDX.
Okay.
And so I've got a little bit of a different twist, is that everybody's on board for the data gathering. I want to be ready to enter it into the DDX when I get that permission, like when we actually sign up, right? I want that data ready. And so
Okay.
that's what I would like to work with other people on. So Madison and Alexa, I would love to hear from you of how things are going for you.
Okay. I think this is a solid cluster. And obviously anyone else that wants to join this huddle, this group can hop in here. I'll come back to this one and assign kind of a leader to this one, but I did want to make sure I'm capturing other ones. So there's a funny project scope one, internal data gathering mechanisms. There are some people that are brand new, I think, and wanted to just get ready to like log into the DDX. So this is like a different topic, I think, right? And so we can maybe have like, if there's other people / new to the commitment. If there's other people that might be in this category, I think that might be different enough from other groups that might be more technical or further along on the process. So let's hold on this one. And then I'm just making sure, do they as a peak and average occupants, including those in their definition? Okay, and it seems like another kind of specific data point. Maybe this and the offsite renewables can go together because they're kind of really like specific about a specific data point in the process. So maybe we can kind of tackle those as one group. All right, so Brian also wants to be in the sign up group, great. And then there's a firm participation one. So Alex and Jeff, I'm curious if this is the same as this gathering data question, or if you're really thinking more about it differently. Can you kind of give me a sense of what your questions are about firm participation?
No, I think it's pretty much in line with the gathering data.
Okay.
Just generally just getting people on board with the initiative, and it's been pulling teeth to get people to actually log data. So trying to talk to some other folks and get some ideas of how they're doing it at their firms.
Great. And Alex, was that similar to your question, or do you have like a different flavor?
Yeah, I think that's pretty in line, and pulling teeth two directions, internally and then externally as well for the consultant. And so it sounds like joining the group here would make good sense.
I think there's a lot in here that will be really interesting. So let's lock in this group for sure. Let's talk about, I'm forgetting, maybe I pulled this topic into a different topic. Consultants, Alex, I know that was like part 2 of your question. Let me put this towards the end because maybe we can pivot that into like another breakout topic if people get want to jump around. But I think this is another really good question, like what tips people have for talking to consultants and getting the right information from them, so you don't have to like, it's not like a chasing down situation. Okay, so I'm going to say, oh, and then we also had like another group topic called study hall. So if you actually feel like you want to use this time for doing the reporting, like just getting into a room with other people, like wanting to just like find all the files that you need to find on your drive or whatever, there's definitely space for you here in this hackathon. So I'm going to keep this open for group 1. Group 2, I'm going to call this project scopes. And hey, Tate, since you answered that question about new construction and major renovations, can you tap into this group?
Funny projects.
Yeah.
That's my middle name.
Okay. I'm going to make group 3 gathering data for projects internally. let's see, who would I want to assign with that? Katie, do you feel inspired to take on the internal firm questions?
Yeah, I was just slacking Brian about it.
Oh, sweet. Okay. Sorry, signing up with the DDX / new to the commitment. Tia, do you want to help with this one?
Sure, that sounds good.
Awesome. And then, so I'm just gonna put Gavin's question down here. I want to make sure everyone has space to ask their questions. And Tia, I want to talk about this, but maybe that's part 2. Peak and average occupants. Who asked about this one? Sorry, I must have written it down and then I didn't. Okay, Maya had a question about that. So actually, yeah. We'll set you loose soon, I promise. I just want to make sure that we're capturing everybody. Signing it. Okay, so people are kind of adding themselves to these groups. I'm going to do like a catch-all specific, like hyper-specific questions about reporting. And I'm happy to take that one. I think we have. Oh, and Seth, I didn't put you into anything yet. Do you have a passion for any of these topics? I bet group 3 could be, you could help there.
Sure, I'm happy to be a floater too. I could jump into other rooms.
All right. So are we happy? Does anyone like have another burning question that I, or theme or topic that I did not put on the slide that folks want to champion for a separate breakout topic? Because we can bounce around and come back and add different topics too. But for now, I think we have a pretty healthy range of questions. I think we can start here. So speak up if you're like, no, I can't go anywhere. Okay, so I think this is where Mike, I think you have the power to create breakout rooms, 5 different topics, and once you set that up, we can actually go into the breakout rooms.
So those of you that can, you should be seeing breakout rooms now. And when you click on those, you should be able to go into them. Usually what you'll see is a little blue things, like join. That's where you're clicking.
Okay. See ya.
How long do we have?
We have like another hour, but we might not need the whole time.
Okay.
Let's aim for 6:45.
Yeah, 6:40. Yeah, exactly. 45 minutes, or come back to the main room. We'll touch base.
Okay.
I think.
Looks like people are jumping into rooms. So
all right.
If you need help, there's a support question, and I can help you.
Gathering it all because it's just all over the place.
I think that's the messy, juicy part, right? It's not about looking good at the end of the day. This is your data. And so it's about getting into the weeds and asking the right questions. And you'll learn things just by going through the.
Well, Mike's got a project.
Yeah.
He's trying to find a new space for us.
Yes, I do. Well, that was her initial project she started.
Yeah, exactly.
Our office space.
That's great.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I'm just hopping room to room to make sure everybody's happy and satisfied. You guys okay here?
So far, so good.
I think so. Yeah.
All right.
Wonderful. All right. So
I think, committing to it is the bigger, purpose of the program. And so it
Right.
doesn't have to be absolutely gorgeous. It just has to say, we mean business. We're going to try to do our best here.
I think that's the key, right? Is that this idea of you can do your best. Is that true? I mean, like your goal is to meet the goals, but like all these different project types, I mean, LMS who
this is for lighting. Okay, square footages. That's all I'm seeing, square footages. And not seeing any.
A couple reading rooms and a restroom, and then they're redoing stuff in the interior as well of the existing, and it becomes kind of squishy. But I mean, Tate answered that we would always consider those new if there's anything new, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we get all the bells and whistles of a brand new energy model. It's the energy model gets very, very complicated because you're not necessarily choosing. I mean, you almost have two different envelopes. You have the envelope of the existing and you have the envelope of the new, and they're probably going to be very different.
Options within the building if you're not going to take the default path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the two things I like to pull out of the DDX, they're two things at little tables. And let's see if I can share my screen.
Yeah, I'll stop sharing.
And I'm just looking here. So this is a list of our projects, but I pull out a couple of tables because I reference them all the time, just having them super handy and not having to look them up. One is this design energy code equivalent.
They do an extra step, and I'll put into the chat just the name of the forms that you need.
Oh, that would be so great.
To confirm, Seth, that those are available only if the mechanical engineer or the designated party is doing the performance reporting, though. Is that right? Or can we still get those even if it's a prescriptive Title 24 documentation?
My understanding, it's only if it's performance, but I might be wrong on that.
No, it's a performance model. Because basically the Title 24 performance model is a dynamic thermal energy model. And it can, for compliance reasons, it converts all of the outputs to this TDB metric, which is irrelevant to us. But it's typically section U, which just has your site, your predicted site use in electricity and therms, kWh and therms. So all of our consultants tend to include that section as a default. Although I did just search one, and it looks like the one I happened to search didn't have section U in it. But especially if you like use the same consultants, right, or use like a small section, it should only be one conversation, and then you'll get the sections. Seth, do you have access to one just to bring up so people know what it looks like?
Yeah.
Okay.
You all see my screen? So this is basically, it's in our drawing set. You have to scroll all the way through, and then it says perf 1E is the name of the form. You go to table U, and maybe you want to take a snapshot of this, what this area looks like, but this is the perf 1 table U, which gives your megawatt hours of your proposed design. And what you can do is put that in to, well, you're gonna have to convert that to kilowatt hours, right? But we're gonna, so that is, what is the?
It's true, there are unit conversions you have to get people to do. That one's easy, that's times 1,000. I always have to look up MBTU. I think should be 1,000 BTU. But it's, anyway, I think you multiply that by 100.
Let me show you an Econ 1 form too, which I prefer.
I didn't know they made those still.
Yeah, that's what I always ask for is my default because it breaks down by the month,
Right.
and then you can actually just get a little bit more information. But at the bottom of it, it shows you the kilowatt hours and the therms.
Way better.
And it's already the units that you need. You can plug these two units all into the DDA.
Do a much better job of post-occupancy energy usage collection and just double check and look back and how close were we to meeting, the energy predicted.
Question for you guys. What made you decide to sort of make the commitment to a 2030? And is it the ease of sort of, I guess, archiving your building's performance, or yeah, what drove you to do the AI type of commitment?
I guess the real answer to that would be I have kids and I want them and their kids to live on a planet that's livable. And, this is our way as architects of helping to make sure that that's possible.
So Mike.
Yes.
I actually just entered a project. Just so you know, this was super successful.
Congratulations. That is the meaning of a hackathon. Everyone helping. So I want to kind of leave it open. This is why I'd like to get some feedback on how did it go? What were the, how do you think we might improve this next time? Just any kind of feedback. Well, first of all, was this worthwhile? Time well spent?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Uh-oh.
It was fabulous.
Okay, good.
Sorry, I was muted. Did anyone learn anything amazing that they wanted to share out? I didn't get to hop in all the different groups, but if you learned something about the process, about yourself, feel free to share it out.
Well, we did talk a little bit about why we wanted to participate, and that was really great to just talk about it. I feel like this is a great way to become part of the solution and not just contribute to the problem. And I thought it was super practical because, I'm like futzing around here by myself, and I realized I had already signed the letter and I had already signed up, but I just didn't know how to start. So this was like a great way I can put all my projects in now. It's like amazing.
Oh, good. Yeah, once you do it a few times, you're like, oh, it's not that bad.
We had a participant in our group who was here from the Los Angeles coat by way of Ben Levy from our East Bay coat and Charlie in San Francisco. And it was really neat to learn that there is a network here in California. And I mentioned to them that one of the things we've discussed in the National Working Group is trying to get 100% participation by coat members, prior to targeting 100% participation by all AIA members, which is actually what the goal of the organization is.
Yeah, I told David I'd help out as long as he didn't put me in a room with any Title 24 questions. And they were all Title 24 questions. So.
I did not put you in that room.
Learned all about PEF reports. Yeah, guys, appreciate it.
We had a very technical question that Tia and I brought to the hackathon tonight, which we still haven't answered, which is what sorts of offsite renewables can be accounted for. And I know Gwen and Tate and others participated more in the discussion of that than I did in creating this newest version of the DDX. So here in the East Bay, we have East Bay Community Energy, and they, you know, are our default grid energy provider instead of Pacific Gas and Electric, and they offer several different renewable energy blends, and some of which are 100% renewables. And I think our big question is that enough of a commitment to offsite renewables, or is this really targeted at someone who's in a situation where their building is shaded by trees or geography or neighboring buildings, and so they're going to purchase or, you know, actually commit to help build offsite renewables, and that's really what this is intended for.
Yeah, this is a great question. And I know we should probably wrap up, but there's great resources out there. The answer is you can insert on-site renewables and off-site renewables that will roll into your EUI. So let's pretend that I'm just throwing in a number. You can see that the number for renewables changed, right? So it's automatically calculating whatever number you put in here before you qualify what it is, it's rolling into this, okay? So going down here though, this is where eventually I think the program will be a bit more specific about what, you know, what counts, quote unquote, but right now we're just collecting the data. So one of the questions is, do offsite renewables provide additionality? Meaning, are you purchasing, is this agreement to like actually add solar PVs to the grid? Is this part of the like formal agreement that you're purchasing? A lot of times for East Bay Community and for others, it does not necessarily, I guess, guarantee that there will be PVs added to the grid once you like click that checkbox or whatever. It's investing in that like as an infrastructure towards eventually having full green energy, but it doesn't necessarily assign a PV grid piece to your building, right? It asks if it's in the same energy grid. So these are questions that also are asked for USGBC projects, for ILFI projects. So there's like more, you know, if you've done a LEED project recently, this is probably something that's come up for you. But for now, you know, like the 2030 commitment is not necessarily dictating what of these yes or no questions or drop downs counts. Right now, it's like allowing you to say, I have offsite renewables, and it's doing that calculation. Does that answer the question?
So in that range of choices, can we just look through them?
Yeah, so let's say it's East Bay, so it doesn't provide additionality. It is in the same energy grid. You might not be able to say that you have like a purchase of year, like you can ask your owner, like, are you planning to just keep this as your default option? And so you can say 16 plus. And then you say community renewables, or so there's different types. Renewable, I would encourage you to look at the zero code renewables resource document, because this is like the way that the zero code is like starting to define what carbon neutral is. And these are different, there's different ways of scoring and weighting offsite renewable energy. Like some of these are 1-to-1, some of them are only like 20% of this purchase can be applied towards your carbon neutral. And it depends on the jurisdiction that adopts the code, how they do that assignment. So this could be really technical, really fast, and it probably deserves a whole other webinar by someone that knows more than I do. But yeah, renewables, investment fund, power purchase agreement, direct ownership. This is like what USGBC wants you to do. Green retail tariffs, wholesale markets, unbundled recs, or other. But for right now, the 2030 commitment is pretty agnostic.
Yeah, I think we want to get a sense for the quality of your offsite renewables, and certainly trying to promote additionality. And the other variable was the length of time you commit to buying them as well. What I've seen is corporations use Offsite Renewables is like a corporate fig leaf. You know, they do whatever they want, and then they just buy these really cheap offsite renewables and call it carbon neutral, which we all know is bullshit. and so we're not far enough along to define where that line is yet, because we want to make the program accessible to everybody. And offsite renewables are how you're going to meet 80% after a certain point. You know, there's no more efficiency left you can squeeze out of the building.
Yeah.
But in no way is it a substitute for creating a high performance building envelope and integrating on-site renewables to the degree that is feasible.
Yeah. Sometimes you can't get to 80% without it though. So
yeah,
that's why the program is starting to open that up.
Certain buildings like hospitals, labs, they just don't have enough roof area or site area to meet the target.
Restaurants, grocery stores, big energy users.
Yes.
Thank you. That was really helpful.
We're learning too. So let me know. Yeah. Let us know if that is a system that seems to make sense. I'm sensitive to the clock. I know Mike has something right at 7. So I think we might just try to wrap up here. I'll put my email in the chat if there are other questions that occur to folks. And
looks like we have a poll.
Oh, did I do that?
Oh.
Did I accidentally set a poll up?
I think Mike set it up and I launched it.
Yeah, that's a poll from another meeting, but it's appropriate here. I didn't realize we had that. Maybe that means.
All right, I'm going to end polling. Thanks. Cool.
It's all architects.
Yeah.
Sustainability people.
Yeah. Yeah, good data point. I think some folks left before we did this poll. So anyway, thanks for coming. Really great for sticking through this 2-hour event, especially for folks outside of our time zone. Holler, Tate. So thanks so much for coming as huddle leaders and as participants and champions within your own firms for the 2030 commitment. I think we're all working towards the same goal here, and it's always nice to know that we're sharing that mission when we're, even in pandemic times when we're kind of isolated. So take this energy with you. Remember to report in April. Let me know if you have any other questions, and yeah, go to it. Thanks for coming. Mike, any last words?
That's it. Thanks everybody for hanging on, and we look forward to feedback. I will be sending out the link to the video once we scrub it for anything the public can't see, plus all the links, and the chat will be available in the next day or two. You'll get all that information. Thanks again.
Thanks, that was great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good evening.